hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.
On February 13th, 2025, Richard Lee Tabler will take his final breath, a man whose violent spree left 4 people dead. Tabler has spent nearly 2 decades on death row, a place where he continued to stir controversy long after his conviction. But how did he get here? And what has his time on death row been like? Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more gripping true crime stories. If you're fascinated by real-life crime cases and the chilling events that shape them, turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Let's dive into this disturbing case. Born on February 5, 1979 in Tulare County, California, Tabler's upbringing was marred by instability. His parents had a troubled marriage and he experienced significant neglect during his childhood. Diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder at the age of 12, Tabler struggled academically and socially, often displaying a quick temper. These early challenges set a tumultuous foundation for his later actions. Between November 26 and November 28, 2004, Tabler committed a series of murders in Killeen. Tabler's crimes extended beyond mere acts of violence. They reflected a disturbing need for control and recognition. His killing spree was driven not just by revenge, but by a desire to taunt law enforcement and assert his power. After each murder, he called the Bell County Sheriff's Office not just to claim responsibility, but to issue threats, making it clear he wanted attention for his actions. Timothy Don Payne, the 18-year-old Fort Hood soldier who assisted Tabler, played a crucial role in the crimes but was reportedly manipulated into participation. Payne filmed portions of the first 2 murders on a camcorder, which was later destroyed. Unlike Tabler, he later expressed deep remorse for his involvement, and his military background added another layer of complexity to the case. The victims' backgrounds provide further insight into the gravity of Tabler's crimes. Mohammed-Amine Rahmouni, the nightclub manager, had worked hard to establish himself, while his friend Haitham Zayed was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tabler lured Rahmouni to a location with the promise of selling stereo equipment. When Rahmouni and Zayed arrived, Tabler, accompanied by 18-year-old Timothy Don Payne, ambushed them. Tabler and Payne shot both men multiple times, killing them in cold blood. Amanda Benefield, one of the 2 dancers Tabler killed, was only 16 years old, highlighting the vulnerability of those he targeted. Tiffany Lorraine Dodson, 18, was also lured under false pretenses, falling victim to his calculated brutality. Believing they had implicated him in the earlier killings, Tabler lured them under false pretenses with the promise of illegal substances. He drove the women to a secluded area near a lake and shot them both multiple times, executing them with no hesitation. Tabler was arrested shortly after the murders when law enforcement traced his threatening calls. Upon capture, he confessed in chilling detail, showing little remorse for his victims. In 2007, he was convicted and sentenced to death. His time on death row was marked by further notoriety when he requested an expedited execution and later threatened Texas lawmakers, leading to increased security measures. Payne, who was tried separately, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, avoiding the death penalty. While Tabler was also charged with the Benefield-Dodson murders, no trial has ever been set for those crimes. Since his conviction, Tabler has been incarcerated at the Allenby-Pulaski unit in Texas, where the state's death row inmates are housed in solitary confinement. His time behind bars has been fraught with controversy. In October 2008, he was caught with a smuggled cell phone and used it to make threatening phone calls to Texas State Senator John Whitmire, chillingly informing the senator that he knew the names of his daughters and where they lived. A subsequent investigation revealed that the phone had been shared among 9 inmates, with over 2,800 calls made in just 30 days. Tabler's mother was arrested for her role in smuggling the phone. Tabler's threats didn't stop there. He continued to send death threats to Whitmire in letters and even persuaded a Methodist prison chaplain to smuggle letters out of the prison. In 2012, he once again sent threatening letters showing a disturbing pattern of violent behavior even behind bars. Apart from his threats, Tabler also struggled with his mental state. He attempted to take his own life in October 2008 and was briefly transferred to the Jester 4 unit, a psychiatric prison facility. His mental competency was repeatedly questioned, especially when he expressed a desire to waive his appeals and proceed with execution. In 2011, a hearing was held to determine whether he was mentally competent to abandon his legal appeals, but he later resumed fighting his death sentence. Over the years, Tabler's legal team continued to file motions on his behalf, arguing that he had received an effective legal counsel during his trial. They claimed that his defense attorneys failed to adequately present mitigating evidence regarding his troubled childhood, ADHD diagnosis, and possible mental health disorders. However, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals denied these claims, ruling that his conviction and sentence were legally sound. Tabler's case reached the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, where he argued that his initial conviction was flawed due to procedural errors and prosecutorial misconduct. But in 2014, the court rejected his appeal, stating that there was no substantial evidence to overturn his death sentence. He continued to file appeals over the following years, but each attempt was met with rejection, with courts reaffirming his guilt and the appropriateness of his punishment. His final appeal was brought before the U.S. Supreme Court in October 2024. The highest court in the nation declined to review his case, effectively sealing his fate with all legal options exhausted. Richard Lee Tabler was executed on February 13, 2025. His execution brought closure to a case that has haunted the victims' families in the Killeen community for over 2 decades. His story serves as a grim reminder of how one man's violent impulses shattered multiple lives. Before his execution, Richard Lee Tabler, 46, also admitted to killing 2 teenage dancers at the club and said he had found God during his 2 decades in prison. I had no right to take your loved ones from you, and I ask and pray, hope and pray, that one day you find it in your hearts to forgive me for those actions, Tabler said, strapped to the death chamber gurney, looking at relatives of his victims who watched through a window a few feet away. No amount of my apologies will ever return them to you. He told the victims' family members that there wasn't a day that went by in which he didn't regret his actions, and thanked prison officials for their compassion and showed that he could change and become a better man and rehabilitate. After apologizing several more times, Tabler said that it was the beginning of a new life for him in heaven. He told the warden at the state penitentiary in Huntsville, "I am finished." And as the drugs began pouring into his body, he mouthed once again, "I'm sorry." Tabler then began breathing quickly. After about a dozen breaths, all movement stopped. What are your thoughts about the case?
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.